for the aesthetics of a log home, using the different textures, whether it's boxwoods, which are a broadleaf evergreen, to a needled evergreen. So that's kind of, you're planting some of the same species of what your log home is built out of, and so it all blends together, utilizing some natural rock as accents, whether that's boulders or walkways.
You get the earth compared to you got woods compared to stone, and
right.
Today we are going to talk about landscaping, what the best choices are for your home, what are not the best choices for your home, and just kind of pick the brain of somebody who knows what they're talking about when it comes to how to make the outside of your house, flowers, the trees, and everything on the outside of your house look great.
Hi, I'm Lynn.
And I'm Lacey.
And I'm Troy.
Welcome to the Acorn and Leaf podcast. We're so excited today to have Troy Schlotz here with us. I've known Troy for 30 years, I think.
I believe so. Yes.
Yeah. And he has an extensive background in the landscaping industry. As a matter of fact, he personally did my patio at my house.
Yes.
So
and maybe still waiting for a fire pit.
Yeah, I'm still waiting for my fire pit,
I think
Troy.
you've only been waiting 15 years for that.
Oh, well, I'm still alive and kicking. So.
Sure.
Tell us a little bit about your history in this industry, Troy.
I've been around this, I'm going to say, since about 1976.
Oh, wow.
My brother started a landscaping company in the mid-70s. My job was to pick up rocks out of yards, put them in a bucket, and throw them in the hatchback Vega. That's all we
and
had.
What did you learn from that, Troy?
It stuck with me. My brothers went on to be very good computer geniuses. I continued to just play in the dirt. And so went to MU to be a groundskeeper, to get my degree in turf. I learned a ton about plants going to MU, and just took off from there.
Yeah.
And that still has to apply a little bit.
Oh, yes. Yeah. And so that's where, just gaining plant knowledge for someone who's just learning or is wanting to build a house and wanting to do it themselves, the best way to go about it is simply go to your local nurseries or garden centers and start reading tags. That's what I did. And so you learn about when the plants will bloom, what their characteristics are, how tall they'll get, how wide they'll get, and you just start learning. You'll see something that catches your eye at a nursery. You're like, oh, that looks pretty cool. Well, just read the tag, and then you kind of start the process. You're starting to gain your knowledge.
And as have learned that what they say on those tags, they actually do grow to be that big.
Sure.
Like I planted some things that were very small, and they said gets to be 20 foot tall. And I'm like, oh, no way. This is going to be a 20 foot tall. Yeah. And it got to be 20 foot tall.
Exactly.
Yeah. And sometimes they get mislabeled. I've had some that say, oh, it's only going to get 4 foot tall. So I'll put them close to an entryway. And I'll go back years later, and these things are 9 or 10 foot tall. I'm like, okay, they lie.
They lie.
Yeah,
got that one wrong.
Yeah, but there's so many varieties of plants to where they'll take one plant and turn it into something else. So like a burning bush that we've known forever as a big red fiery bush. Well, now it can be planted on a standard, and a standard is just a single stem, so it looks like a small tree.
Oh, wow.
And so now they've turned everything into a tree. You've got hydrangeas, you've got lilacs, which it just adds to the variety of what you can.
Right.
So those type of plants on a standard are now a specimen plant that is an accent in your gardens. And so it's just something, hydrangeas, you can get them in about any color. The lilacs, you have all the same smells that we recall from farm days. And so it's pretty interesting. So So if they get something mislabeled, that's because the plant's not doing quite what they thought it was going to. And so it takes off and it gets back to its old characteristics. You'll see some shrubs that look very nice, and then they revert back to their original form. You see it in the dwarf Alberta spruces, to where it's nice and contained, slow growing, very fine needled, and then it will finally have gone through its growth cycle to where it's now just becoming a spruce, and it just starts growing like a spruce. The rest of it with the fine needles are over here, and on the other side, it's just a prickly needle instead of a fine needle.
Well, you're talking about lilacs. Lilacs are my favorite bush of all. I think one of the things I love the most about them is that they bloom early in the spring, and I'm always looking. My favorite flowers are the ones that bloom in the spring because it gets me out of that winter doldrums.
Oh, sure.
I mean, I'm so tired of winter, and I'm ready to see some flowers, and they pop out, and I love that.
Yeah, and that's where you just start gaining your knowledge of you kind of want that cycle to happen all year long. So you're just going through and you're like, all right, well, lilacs are first ones out, and then you start and you see the daylilies and the tulips come in, and so it's everything about a 6-week cycle. You're ready to plant something that has that continual growth of blooms.
Right. Even trees.
Yeah.
So trees come out earlier than others, and I've planted 32 trees around my house since I
realize.
Yeah, and different ones come out at different times, and it's always to me it's always like I see this one that comes out first, and I'm always like, yes, it's finally spring.
Oh
yes.
yeah.
Here we are.
So, what are your advice? What's your advice to someone who is got a new log home and they're thinking of doing it themselves as far as landscaping? How do you think? What are some of the things you would recommend to do that they can get the most wow factor for their buck?
Well, a lot of it is going back to gaining knowledge of what you're looking for, what you like. It's kind of style and lifestyle, to where do you have time to take care of the plants? Are you going to be an avid gardener, or are you not interested in it? Do you want to just walk by them on the way to your car or truck, and you want low maintenance, no maintenance? So a lot of it is just kind of doing your homework on plants, and whether you don't want everything to be deciduous that's going to lose its leaves. You need a balance of whether it's broadleaf evergreens or needled evergreens. So a lot of times when you're designing with colors and textures, and whether it's deciduous or evergreen. And so with that, it's with the log homes and with any house in general, people have a tendency to plant the stuff too close to the house. They're not paying attention to what they read on the tag that this is going to get 4 foot wide. A big mistake is they'll overplant it. They see the size that it is now. It's a 2-gallon size. And so we're like, oh, well, we need 30 of these here. Well, you really only need 10. And so, for a landscaping professional, it's just work that you're going to keep doing, because now you're going to have to trim everything because everything's been overplanted. And then in about 3 years, you're going to start tearing it out. So you want to pay attention to the spacing, and there's some. Then you also look at what kind of style you want. If you want, I would think most of the log homes are of a more informal, but not always. So you've got formal is going to be plants that are more self-contained. They're not real free-flowing as far as their growth habits. They don't require a lot of maintenance. All plants require food, water, and a little bit of trimming. And so it's, figuring out your style, and then starting to get your plants together that will work for your style and for your lifestyle. If you're someone who's going to be out working in the yard all the time or quite often, then you can really up the varieties that you want to plant so that you have continual flowering. If you don't have that kind of time, then you want to cut down the variety of plants that you use. And when you're doing your design, you're wanting to balance. Formal is going to be more symmetry. Informal is a balance of, well, if I'm putting daylilies on the left side of my sidewalk, then I also want to put them on the right side, but they don't have to be in the same spot. So, and a lot of times if you only want to use 4 or 5 varieties of plants. You don't need to get, unless you are avid at it and know what you're doing. Otherwise, it can get so hodgepodge and so chopped up that, so they always say you plant in 1s, 3s, and 5s. And that's, for the most part, is very, very true. That's the balance part. And so yeah, it can be an interesting process. You've got a lot of different things to consider as far as what is your bed going to look like, the shape of it, what are you going to use for the bed dressing? Bed dressing be whether it's going to be mulch, rock, gravel. So
I know you've done a lot of water features and things like that. Some of the things that are way more labor intense than just planting flower beds, having flower beds. Which of those do you think are the easiest to do, least expensive to do? What are your thoughts on waterscapes?
Yeah, I mean, water features are pretty in depth. They're not really for the faint at heart. It's called a bubbling boulder, and it's something that a DIYer can. That's how I got into it. I was just reading, and I'm like, "What is this bubbling boulder?" And so what it is you find a rock that you like, and you drill you go to your rent store, and you get a core drill, and you ask for a 2-inch, a 1-inch, and a 3/4 inch, and that's the bits you get. And so you drill a hole in the top of this rock with a 2-inch bit. And that's about 2 inches down. And then you get your 1-inch bit and you drill down another 3 inches with that. And then you take the 3/4 and you go all the way through it. And so by having different diameter holes, it makes the water pulsate when it comes out. And so it's a pondless feature to where you don't have stagnant water just sitting on the ground. You have a tub that's underneath the ground, and there are containment systems you can buy. Or you can do it yourself by simply going to a hardware store or feed store and buying a Rubbermaid watering bin. They're very stout, and so you put that in the ground. You get a water pump that will pump the water up, so all the water is contained under the ground, and you just pump it up through the rock, and it falls back down. You've got gravel on a screen that's covering the tub, and they're very therapeutic. Pretty economical.
That's cool.
Yeah. So a lot of people want them around their patios just so they can sit there and listen.
Right.
Yeah.
And there's really no maintenance to them. You pour a little bit of RV antifreeze in the water so that it doesn't freeze. And
wow.
Can you keep it running all winter, like here in Missouri?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Because it's below ground, so the water doesn't freeze.
Right.
And the antifreeze in it.
And the antifreeze helps.
Wow.
How deep does that tub need to be?
It really depends on the size of the boulder. A lot of times, if you get a 24-inch cross boulder, your tub that you're going to end up having is probably 12 inches deep.
Okay, interesting. Wow.
Well, that's a fun idea.
We progressed with that with one of my employees put one in, and my son being an electrician, he's like, "Kyle, I want a light in there." So we put strip light around it. Well, and once we turned it on, we turned the water on. We developed a product called Fire Rock because it looks like lava.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I'm like, that's Fire Rock. So that's just another.
That's a great idea because I've seen so many places where people have some kind of a water feature, and then when it gets cold, they have to turn it off, and they just look really crappy in the wintertime.
Right.
You can't make those things look good when they're not running.
Right.
And also there's the maintenance part of it. Is for, I've seen the streams and things that people have made, and I've always had a desire to have one of those, but it's just so much maintenance to take care of.
It is. And just to get it to flow right, to not leak. There's, like I said, it's not for the faint at heart. You have to really buy into it. But otherwise, it can be a fun process. It's certainly something that needs to be thought of in the design process of if you're obtaining a new log home. Well, you also got to think about what's going to go on outside and have money set aside for it. Even from the type of lawn to to trees. If you're thinking through it the right way, you're looking at direction to where if the back of your house is facing west, then you're going to eventually need some shade.
And we'll be right back. I know. We get it. You've been sitting there, driving your car, maybe you're running on a jog on a beautiful morning, listening to this podcast and thinking about building your log home. So we made it easy for you. Start your journey with us here at Gastineau Log Homes. Family owned, women led, and proudly crafting oak log homes since 1977. As the largest oak log home manufacturer in America, we're here to help bring your dream, big or small, to life. You can call our office at 573-896-5122 or swing by the National Mata Home Center here in Kingdom City, Missouri, or even visit us online at oakloghome.com to get started, because your dreams never look so good. While you're listening to this podcast, did you find yourself loving or imagining the smell of sawdust or the thrill of closing a deal? Well, good, because we're hiring. From the mill to sales to design to even shipping, there's a place for you at Gastineau Log Homes. You can apply today at oakloghome.com/careers. If you've been enjoying the Acorn and Leaf podcast, do us a quick favor. Leave us a review on Apple Podcasts or Spotify. It helps more folks who love log home living find us and join the conversation, which is such an awesome community. And hey, if you love what we do here at Gastineau Log Homes, head over to Google and leave us a review there as well. It means the world to us and keeps the dream growing. Thanks for listening and for being part of the Gastineau family. Back to the show.
You mentioned the mistakes that when people DIY their landscaping, one of the mistakes they do is planting things too close to the house or overcrowding with the flower. Is there anything else that you see that people make mistakes doing?
That for the most part is the biggest problem, and just not designing. They don't have enough knowledge. So asking questions of people at garden centers, just for help on balance. It might be one of my pet peeves as far as if you have one shrub, if you have one type of shrub and then you have another type of shrub and another, there is no continuity in anything of what they're doing. And so that's where planting in the groups of 1, 3s, and 5s helps with that balance. So quantities.
Explain to me and everyone else what 1, 3s, and 5s mean.
So you're either planting one shrub or you're planting a group of 3 or a group of 5. And so for whatever reason, that's what has been taught forever.
And planting them in like a cluster.
Mm-hmm. Right. So if you've got 3 boxwoods and you've got them evenly spaced at 4 foot from each other, so that once they reach their maturity, then there's still room between them. Right. Unless you're trying to create a hedge, then you're going to smush stuff together a little bit. And smush is an actual landscaping term. You can look it up. It's there. So that's where the smush, you got to smush it up. And so that's where you're either planting one plant by itself or 3 or 5. And if you're planting one, it's usually a unique standalone, kind of like the standards we were talking about with the burning bush and hydrangeas and lilacs.
So that's like the aesthetically pleasing.
Right. It's kind of your focal point.
Gotcha.
And you can use that and start to plant accent plants around it, to where that's some of the perennials, whether it's daylilies or what have you, whatever your personal liking is.
Gotcha.
Right. No, and that's the way it should be. Sometimes it gets a little out of hand. There's been times when thousands of plants show up at your house and we have to sort through them.
Yes, we have done that. Never. No, yeah.
Yeah.
Nice to know.
Yeah.
Swish.
Yeah, you never knew what you were going to get. Nope, that was exactly. But the thing is, if you're buying them from a trade show, they're bringing the best of the best. So you've got the best around your house.
And
But
the
yeah,
best
so-
part about it, though, too, is if you put something in the ground and a few years later you don't like it, I mean, you could just pull it up,
Yeah.
right?
Or,
I mean, there's nothing permanent. There's nothing,
no.
nothing that can't be changed, modified.
Right.
I think that was one thing that I've personally had to kind of learn is that if I don't, 'cause
That's
I am-
me. I'm
I don't
definitely an
know a lot about
informal
it, but I do
gardener,
like
as
to
you know.
plant.
You've seen my house. I
like
plant
the
what I
flowers.
like. I don't really
got
care
that
what it
from
looks like.
my mother.
I plant what I like.
But I never wanted to pull them
Yeah.
up. Never wanted. I was like so
Yeah.
nervous about planting
Right.
the wrong thing. And I was like, you know what? I can just pull it out. If I don't like it, I pull it out. Right.
Right.
And, you
Oh,
know,
yes,
and
we have
put it
done
somewhere
that.
else or not. But I
Yeah,
We,
and that's
we have
what,
done that.
You can
Troy
move stuff
and
around.
my
The
husband used
timing
to
of the
buy
year,
booths
is,
at
certainly you don't
nursery
wanna do it
shows, and we would bring them in
the heat of the
January
summer.
and heal them in, and we would
Trees are running
have
backwards,
200
usually starting
trees
in the
and
first
all
part
these
of
things with
November.
no
So that has
stickers
to
on
do
them.
with
We did not
the
know what they
inside of the tree
were.
on how
We
it's
just I just
obtaining
stick them in the
nutrients
ground.
and
We'll see
starting
what
to kind of
comes up.
hibernate. And
Never
so
knew we were going to
you
get.
can transplant about anything.
That's why I have 32
in
different
November.
kinds of trees in my house.
This is
So-
all based on my knowledge. Now, this might not be worldwide accepted,
Yes.
but that's
I
you know,
do.
It's
I
always
have
been,
some really
we
cool
don't
trees.
transplant until sometime in November. And so if you've got something that I've done this in my yard several times, if it's not doing well in its location based on whether it's got too much sun or too much shade, then I'm more than likely I'm not going to pull it out and throw it away. It's going to get put to another spot and
Right.
just see if it'll work there.
To back up a little bit, what you were saying earlier about planting for the direction of your home, the way your home
Right.
faces. I think that's an important part too of that planning, like you were mentioning. So all our houses are we ship across the nation, right? People are building all over. So are there any new species of trees or things that are fast growing that people could plant that are not necessarily just native to Missouri or that would be all over?
Yeah, I think, and just depending on what they're looking for, but like most soft maples are fast growing, whether it's a red or, there's a ton of different new varieties of maples. Bald cypress are a good fast. Birch trees are relatively fast growing. Pin oaks, if they're available in your area. Ginkgos are a great shade tree, very unique foliage. They are a very small leaf, yellow leaf. They look like a Japanese fan. And so and then you've got sweet gums. This is the stuff you learn while you're walking around the campus of MU at 7:30 in the morning, probably hungover, but you're learning that if you take a sweet gum leaf and you crumple it, it smells like kerosene. So it's got natural deterrents of something. But yeah. And so
Wow.
it's pretty interesting. And
Wow.
yeah, so sweet gums are the ones
Interesting.
that have the little seed balls that drop. Now the black gum, I believe, is a new variety that is fruitless.
So one thing I did want to ask you also that relates to kind of based on the past conversation.
There's some pretty ones.
Do you tell me the pros and cons between a mulch bed versus a rock bed?
Mulch beds are if you're going to be planting multiple times throughout the year, mulch beds are a lot more accessible than the rock beds. Most mulch beds don't have weed barrier underneath them. It kind of changes from year to year. We'll have customers that insist on weed barrier, which helps to keep the weeds down that are growing from underneath. But a lot of the weed seeds are airborne, and so you're still going to get weeds. Mulch, you're going to have to replace it every 9 to 12 months to keep it looking fresh. That's the downfall. The strong point about it is it has a softening effect on your landscapes.
Really?
If you've got a hard look, you've got a lot of concrete, you've got a lot of hardscapes,
Sweet
it
gum.
will help to soften it. Much just like a lawn does for a whole house. It softens the effect. A rock bed gives you a ton of variety. The trend right now is to use different sizes, different colors in the same bed to give it almost a bit of an artistic approach, to where if you want to accent a corner of your bed, you might put 3 to 5 inch rock. The rest of the bed might still be the same type of rock, but it's only 1.5 inches. So it just just getting little accent points, whether you're changing the color, you're changing the gradation of the rock, it still draws your eye. If there's an area that you want to focus on. And then years ago, we started introducing rock and mulch beds together. And that was unheard of 20 years ago. They're like, what are you doing? I'm like, well, we want to accent this. And because we would have so much rock, and then you could put a bit of an artistic flair with the mulch inside of a rock bed. And so but also it allow you to have a perennial bed within your rock bed, but you weren't having to dig through the rock to put the plants in. So you just put them in the mulch bed.
Piggyback off that, what are your thoughts on weed barrier versus no weed barrier?
If you want to put your mulch in at least 4 inches deep, and that will help to withstand any weeds that are growing up from the ground. And a lot of times, if you have high wind areas, it's not going to adhere to the weed barrier. So it's best to just go heavy on the mulch.
So you're more a proponent of heavy. What about for a rock bed?
Rock bed, yeah, you definitely want to put weed barrier, and you want to use a good quality weed barrier. Some of the stuff that you find at the garden centers or the box stores, it's just not quite thick enough, and so you usually want to go to a garden center and get a heavy woven weed barrier.
Right, because I mean, in my experience, you make one tear, even to plant something, and then that exposes all the dirt around it for weeds.
Right,
it's inevitable.
And you're always, most of the weeds that you see in these beds are airborne.
Right.
They're
going right on top.
People will complain that, well, you put down crappy weed barrier.
Right.
No, sorry. If you look at it, the weeds are actually growing on top of the weed barrier.
Right.
And so right. Right. Yeah, nope, that's very true. And with your background in the mulch industry, but yeah, and you also have to look at, there's, whether it's pine needles from the south area, if you're up in the northwest, if it's a nugget style mulch, so there's lots of things out there between whether it's rock or mulch. Once again, you're doing your research basically based on the region of the country that you're in. True. And nor do you have it delivered on your driveway while it's raining and not expect a phone call. Another thing on like tree placement. A lot of people, the biggest mistake I see, and whether this is with
the other thing is
trees
that
or
mulch,
shade
you
trees,
can change color of
especially on the
mulch,
front of a house,
like from one season. If you decided you didn't like the color, whereas the rock you put it down,
home,
you're pretty.
and
It's
then
hard to
they plant
remove.
trees
It's a lot
where you
more
can't see
labor
that.
intense to remove
so
it
the
later
house,
on if you
so the
don't
trees
like
in
the
the
way
front
it
of the
looks.
house
You want to change
are
it in 10
moved
years
to
or
the
something.
edge. They're to frame the very lovely looking house that you've built. And so you don't, you'll see a lot of people that'll put one right in the middle of the front yard. Well, now you just broke your house in half. Or you'll see, even with your landscape designing stuff that gets too tall close to the house, well, you've broken the effect of the house. So that's where doing your research, some of these hydrangea standards and lilac standards are perfect for a bed that's close to the house.
The one thing you always remember is you do not put dyed mulch down in the rain or when it's supposed to rain in the next 24 hours.
Everybody's seen those houses that are just, they look really good 10 years ago, but now it's overgrown and you're now taking trees out.
Right.
And so it's just, like you said, Lynn, paying attention to if they say it's going to get 15, 20 foot tall, it is.
Believe them. Right.
And so you want to get good quality trees, whether you're going to a nursery or to an actual tree farm. But that's where you want to spend your money is if you're young like Lacey and can wait for a tree to grow, or if you're our age and you're like, no, I want a 6-inch caliber tree. I want it. And there are some people out there that they want it now and they don't care. And we'll dig in. And those things are hard to handle. They're several tons, but that's, you have to be reasonable about your expectations of well, this didn't grow. Well, you started too small and you started too late. Right. And don't you also have a corkscrew willow?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So you got all the weird stuff from all over the country at these trade shows. Just finding the stuff that you like and try not to hodgepodge it. Hodgepodge it is planting one species, another species of just one of one. And having well, yeah, no, your house is a classic example of, well, now we did get 2. All right, well, we're planting 2. So it throws the 1, 3, 5 out. Your house is excluded from any type of landscape
Oh, like me.
hierarchy. No, I want a 6-inch caliber tree. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and as well as mine. I don't even remember the name of some of these trees. I'm like, oh, yeah, it's yeah, and that's
don't be afraid
a lot of my
unusual
knowledge
trees.
comes from.
I have a
my
tree in my
house.
yard.
Just,
it is a
it used to
weeping
be I would
bulb
never plant
cypress,
sedum.
and it is so
And
ugly.
the new
It's cool.
varieties of sedum to where, all right, these days are cool.
We have a
and
corkscrew
they
willow.
work well.
Yes.
Every year I have my new favorite plant because based on time, I've watched it grow. So allium for the Midwest has been my number one plant for 2 years. It just works well in this climate. And it's a very lovely perennial.
That's
And
all
so
I
it's
had
just
to work with.
as we gather things from the landscape shows, and they're like,
Not to
let's see
do.
what this sawtooth oak looks like. Yeah, awesome. So it's just, you learn a lot just from what you plant at your own house.
So if you were to make any recommendations to our
Yeah,
log
it has
homeowners
been
that
really fun
when they
watching
build
them
their
all
log
grow.
home
We've been in my house
on,
for
types
37
of
years
plants
now,
and any
I log
recommendations
home,
on
and
the
it
best
is
landscape
it
for a
is
log home, what would that
surrounded by
Well, I think
some very unusual
for
trees.
for the aesthetics of a log home, using the different textures, whether it's boxwoods, which are a
I have a
broadleaf
chart
evergreen,
of mine written out
to-
so that my
to
grandchildren
a
will know
needled
someday
evergreen. So,
what these different
that's
trees
kind
are.
of- you're planting some of the same species of what your log home is built out of, and so it all blends together, utilizing some natural rock as accents.
I like
whether
sedum.
that's boulders or walkways.
you get the earth compared to you got woods compared to stone, and
Right.
that
But it's
contrast.
all natural.
Right.
You're going to want to stay away from a lot of the manufactured type of products because they just don't fit with the style of home. To where if you're using a natural stone border, then that would be more pleasing, I think, to a log home. A lot of the manufactured stuff is good, but a lot of it doesn't hold up as well as natural. Well, sure. No, very, very fun. So yeah, it's defense film for any type of building or houses, whether it's trying to create a safe room or if you're wanting to kind of shatterproof your windows if you're in a bad storm area, just to keep the glass from breaking. The defense film is bullet resistant, and so it's quite unique in the technology, and there are many different applications it can be used for. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So it's very economical for really, whether it's homeowners or school districts, hospitals, banks, whatever. And so it.
Right. That's very interesting.
Troy, we had a discussion earlier about the new product that
yeah.
you're working with. And
Now, a lot of
I'd
it's
like
useless,
to invite
but-
you back for another podcast where we could
Interesting,
discuss
though,
that.
for sure.
Yeah, I appreciate you all having me. It's always good to sit and talk with you guys, and we've got a long history. So it's odd to be sitting inside. We're usually outside on a patio talking. Yeah. I knew it was going to come up again.
And this is